welcome to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Leighanne and I talk about books. Obviously, it's been a little while since you guys have seen my face. So what had happened was, no really. So the last thing I had to actually go through and look to see what the last thing was that I uploaded, because I got through Contemporary-a-thon in February and it was great. Pre-filmed some stuff and then I got busy and I think I got sick or something. I don't remember. I'm gonna be totally honest. I just don't remember. I was doing really well in terms of making sure that I was pre-filming to have all the content that I needed to have, and I was doing really awesome there. But I think what had actually started to happen was I was uploading 3 times a week. So whenever I would pre-film, in order to keep up doing 3 videos a week, I would have to spend half a day filming because I talk too much. And so what I can cut down to maybe an 8 to 12 minute video is usually at least 30 minutes of me talking. So for me to sit there and film and have content to put up 3 videos a week, varying, sometimes it could be 20 minutes of me talking, sometimes it could be 45. So, you're looking at filming that all in one time. That's half of a day right there. And so I essentially was losing half of my day. The weather has changed and it started getting a lot warmer out. And so on my off days, I've been hiking, and I'm trying to be a little bit more conscious of my health. So on my off days, have been meal prepping to make sure that I have meals for the week for my job, because I only get 2 days off a week, and sometimes it can be anywhere between 5 to 7 days, between when I get days off. And so anyway, honestly, life just got in the way. Not that I'm sitting here making excuses for myself, but I got out of the swing of filming and I just never really got back into it. So anyway, moral of the story is I just kind of let life get in the way. However, even though I wasn't filming, I never stopped reading. I went through a thing in the middle of last year where I wasn't filming or reading, but that didn't happen to me this time. And April has been the best month for me for some reason. I have audiobooks to thank for a lot of that, but I'm actually gonna be doing the wrap up that I never did for March and April. Nothing too intense, just a quick hey, here's what I read and what I thought of it. Not the rambly things that I go on I'm doing right now. So, okay, so before we get into wrap up things, for the future. All right, so I just said that I was pre-filming a lot and I was putting up 3 videos a week, and I honestly just don't think that I can sustain that. So I think what I'm gonna shoot for is probably 1 to 2 videos a week, depending on what I have going on. There is at least 1 day a week, probably a Monday or a Wednesday, that I want to 100% have content go up on that day. And just, depending on what I have going throughout the week, that could depend on, if you get a second video or maybe even a third. I'm not gonna make any promises though. So anyway, that's just kind of what I'm working towards. But the content that I put up, I want it to be content that I'm really proud of. Not that I wasn't proud of the content that I was putting up before. I really loved where I was going in terms of the things that I was putting out. I really felt like it was very true to myself and what I love. So I'm gonna continue to go, in that direction. So, okay, all right, so that is what is going on. Also, side note, I post pretty regular updates on my Instagram account. I have both a personal Instagram and a Bookstagram account, I guess. I will link both of those in the description below. My Bookstagram is exactly what it sounds like. I post my stories about exactly what I'm reading, what I'm thinking about that, book mail, all that kind of jazz. My personal account is more my cats and my husband and hiking and meal prep and that kind of thing. So if that's something that you happen to be interested in, go follow me, whatever. Okay, cool. All right, so let's backtrack. Let's backtrack all the way back to February. I'm not gonna go through the books that I read in February because most of what I read fell under Contemporary-a-thon, so I actually have a whole vlog dedicated to that, which I'll link up above if you want to see. And I never posted a wrap-up for February for whatever reason. I don't really know why. And then I think I got midway through in March and I was like, well, there's no point now, I'll just do it all at the end of March. And then I got to the end of March and I was feeling really slumpy at that particular moment. So I was like, nope, not even gonna do it. So at the very end of February, I pre-filmed some stuff because I am going to be doing a new series on my channel about reading Stephen King. Not going to be any particular day that it's posted or anything like that, but it's just going to be kind of like my journey going through reading his body of work. So there will be a separate video coming because I have already filmed that video, but I wanted to put this one up first before I posted that one. So that's the thing. Anyway, so at the very end of February, I was finishing up Salem's Lot. This is honestly, as of this moment, probably one of my favorite Stephen King's ever. I just love it. I love that it's a slow burn. I went through and annotated, and I will be doing a completely separate video on this book and my thoughts and why I love it. So since I read this book, I got it in my head that I wanted to read some of the books that inspired this one. And obviously you can see from the cover, and if you know anything about this book at all, it is about vampires. Right after I finished that, I read Dracula, which this is actually my college copy that I had to read and annotate and do a paper on. So that was the thing, but this is up there in terms of my favorite classics. I really enjoyed this, and I really loved reading this right after Salem's Lot because I could really see the influence. And then immediately after that, I read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This was a reread for me, but it had been so long since I read it that I couldn't remember anything about it. Super short read, really enjoyed it, and again, so much influence from this book in Salem's Lot. Really loved it. Talk more about that whenever I do my single video on Salem's Lot. So that was kind of where I was at the beginning of March. So a thing about myself that I have noticed is when I get an idea into my head, like I freaking go for it and then I burn myself out. I've kind of always been this way, but then this is one of the reasons that I'm kind of a mood reader. I go through these periods where all I want is a certain genre, and then I completely go to the opposite end of the spectrum. So in keeping with the Stephen King theme that I had going on, right after I finished The Haunting of Hill House, I went through and read The Shining. This was another reread for me. Really loved it. I didn't end up going through and annotating much of this one because I half read it and half listened to it on audio, but I do have a lot of notes from this for, again, a separate video for the series that I was talking about. Anyway, 4 stars, definitely King classic. So right after I finished The Shining, I went through and I started The Stand. The Stand is a tome, and I ended up half listening to this on audio and half reading it because it's so big. But while I was in the middle of reading this, I was also reading 2 other things. I went through and I actually listened to Mystic River by Dennis Lehane. I'd never read anything by him before, but I don't know, it was like in my Audible library, and I was like, oh, okay, well, this sounds interesting. And I actually enjoyed it a good bit. I'd never seen the movie or anything, but I did end up really liking it. I gave it 4 stars. The other book that I read, I actually did as a buddy read with Megan from Rogers Reads, and it was After Alice by Gregory MAGUIRE, and I did not like it at all. I ended up giving it 2 stars. Like, you could definitely see the Lewis Carroll influence, and I actually had a physical copy of the book, but it's in a pile waiting to be gotten rid of because I didn't like it. It's a really beautiful book, but I didn't like the story. I was bored. I didn't really feel like anything happened. I don't recommend it. It wasn't good. So then I finished The Stand, which, you know, 4 stars, it's great, but I was like reading so many things close to the end of the month, and I had just like started to feel really slumpy. And so since I was feeling so slumpy, I was like, all right, well, so I decided to listen to Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and I liked it. I really liked the vibe that it had. I still definitely want to see the movie. However, I do feel like the book tried to be a little bit too deep and a little bit too intellectual. So parts of it I felt like went over my head, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. It wasn't as brilliant as some people had made it out to be, in my personal opinion. But if you like sci-fi, I definitely recommend giving it a read or a listen because it is really short. So that was the end of March. So we get to the beginning of April, and I'm not feeling like super slumpy, but I'm still like, I'm not 100% in it at this point. And I'm like, okay, well, I still was kind of like in that vein of horror and like science fiction. And so I ended up listening to Little Heaven by Nick Cutter. It was the first book that I had ever read or listened to by Nick Cutter, and I liked it. It was very atmospheric. It wasn't like overly scary, although the ending did fall a little bit flat, and so that's why I ended up getting 3 stars from me. It does have to do with kind of like a religious cult, but there is a lot more to it than that. Very Jonestown-ish, but you know, it was okay. We got into April, and I like got super into audiobooks because of the things that I was having to do on my off days. I couldn't sit down and read, so As of this moment, I am listening to my 14th book for the month of April, which is a lot. I've been averaging anywhere between like 7 to 9. So, and granted, some of them were like pretty short, so I think that's one of the reasons that the number is so up there, but okay. Anyway, so still in the vein of like science fiction, so I listened to Pines, which is by Blake Crouch, and that is the first in a trilogy. And they actually made a TV series out of it, but basically it's about an FBI agent who is looking for a missing FBI agent, and he wakes up in this town and he has no idea where he is, and things are a little off, and you kind of go from there. And I really liked it. I was drawn into it really quickly. I really liked it. I liked it a lot more than I thought that I was going to. And so since I liked it so much, I was like, oh, well, let me check out the TV series. I watched the first episode and I was like, yeah, no, because the first episode was most of the first book. I was like, yeah, we're not doing this. So that was a little disappointing. But again, I really liked the first book. At the time, I only had the first book in the series, so I was like, okay, let's go with something else sci-fi. Let's go with Born, also by Jeff Vandermeer. It was another 3-star read. It was a little weird, to be completely honest, but I really liked the descriptive writing and the world that it was set in. I thought it was really cool, but the ending honestly left something to be desired for me, and so that's why I ended up only giving it 3 stars. So after I finished that, I could not stop thinking about Pines, and I knew that there were 2 more in the series, and they were really cheap on Audible because I was out of credits. So I was like, okay, let me listen to the next one. Really loved that one. It's just a continuation of the story, so I'm not going to talk about it. Another 4 stars. Really liked it. And then immediately after that, I was like, I just need to go ahead and finish this series. So I did with the last book in the series, The Last Town. I loved the way that it ended, but I didn't love it overall as a whole. So I ended up only giving it 3 stars. But the series in general, I thought was really good. So if you're into sci-fi, I definitely recommend reading it. So that was the thing. So the Pines trilogy was like part sci-fi, part like thriller. And so like I got it in my head that I wanted to read some thrillers. This is how my mind works. And so I ended up picking up The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. And I actually surprisingly really liked this one, although I definitely did guess some of the things that were gonna happen before they did, because I usually do. I didn't guess it until the last second. It wasn't like I was, you know, a quarter of the way through the book and I knew how it ended. So this book is about a woman who is agoraphobic. She lives in her house. She kind of watches her neighbors, and one day she sees something that she probably wasn't supposed to see, but everybody keeps making her feel like she's crazy, and things kind of go from there. So if you've been on the fence about this book, let me put it to you this way. I read All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda, didn't really like it. I read Girl on the Train, didn't really like it. I did like this one though. So if you liked either of those books, then you'll definitely like this one too. Next up, I wanted something really quick to listen to, again in the same vein as thrillers, and I never had read Psycho before by Robert Bloch, and I listened to that on Hoopla, I think it was. If you've seen the movie, you know how it ends. It was well written. I liked it. Gave it 4 stars. Definitely important when it comes to the whole horror and, you know, like thriller genre. So next up, I still wanted another thriller, so I decided to pick up I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. There are definitely some trigger warnings in this. Spousal abuse is a huge one. I really liked it. 4 stars, definitely. This is another one where I didn't figure out what was happening until the last second, and I really appreciate that kind of thing. I really sympathized with the main character of this book a lot, and I just overall really enjoyed it. It's a good thriller, but it's a slow burn, so if you're looking for like something really fast-paced, this isn't it, but it's still really good overall. So next, I was like, I need more Blake Crouch in my life, so I picked up Dark Matter, and I've heard excellent things about this book. A lot of people talked about how much they loved it, and I was like, okay, well, the Pines trilogy was really good, so this one is gonna be, and it is really good. 4 stars. The whole concept of this book is really smart, and it really makes you think about, like, you know, the decision to make a right turn instead of a left turn can affect so many different parts of our lives, and like we don't even know it. And it just, the concept of it was really smart. It did drag a little bit towards the middle for me, but right back at the end it picked up, and I definitely did enjoy it. So if you haven't read this for some reason and this seems like something you'd like, then you need to go ahead and pick it up. Next book that I picked up was Blackbirds. This is by Chuck Wendig, and apparently this is going to be made into a TV series. I don't know when or what network or whatever. But pretty much this is about Miriam Black, and she knows how you're gonna die just from touching you. So because of this gift, she's kind of a drifter and uses this gift to figure out who she can steal from before they kick it, I guess. And one day she does it to the wrong person, and then things happen from there. I didn't like this one as much as I thought I was going to. It definitely wasn't terrible, and I do have the next 2 books in the series, so I will probably go ahead and read them. The biggest thing that I had a problem with this book was the character of Miriam herself. It is a female written by a male, and I get that she's supposed to be edgy, and like because of this you know, gift that she's given and all of the things that she's seen, you know, she's kind of jaded. She's definitely kind of, you know, she's supposed to be like this badass, kick-ass, take names, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks of me, that kind of deal. However, the things that came out of her mouth, just, she didn't feel real to me, if that makes any sense at all. Like, the things that she would say, I'm like, no, nobody would say this in this situation, like, just stop. Which, considering that's the main character, it definitely, like, drew me out of the story, because I couldn't, like, really get into it, because I'm like, this girl is not real, you know what I mean? But like I said, it wasn't terrible. This is kind of like an urban fantasy kind of horror vibe to it. So you can, you know, see the state of mind that I was still in at this point. The next book that I picked up was You by Carolyn Kepnes. And this is about Joe Goldberg, and he stalks women. And I had heard a lot about this book. I ended up seeing it on Book Outlet for really cheap. I saw this and the sequel, and I was like, okay, everybody's been raving about this. This seems like something that I would like. So Joe has like a problem with women, and he gets obsessed with this girl and ends up like creating a relationship with her. And, you know, things kind of go from there. It's told from his perspective. And the reason that it's called You is because it's like, you know, he's like watching her. You did this, and so basically he like goes in and tries to like take control of her life and like sets up a chance meeting and creates this relationship. Okay, so that's where we're at. I'm pretty sure what Kepnes was trying to do was trying to make Joe like relatable, and she was trying to make you root for him, because all of the characters in this book are garbage fires of human beings, legitimately. And I didn't feel any sympathy to Joe at all. I didn't find myself rooting for him. His girlfriend is also a dumpster fire. Like, everybody in this book is a dumpster fire. And honestly, the people themselves didn't feel real. They were like these characters of the worst kind of people imaginable. And they were these stereotypes, and it was just the worst. And it wasn't the worst book that I've ever read, but I still didn't love it. Everybody had hyped it up to be like this great, great book, and I just honestly wasn't feeling it the way that everybody said that I was going to. And so that was really disappointing. Also, it was like really over-sexualized in some points, and I think I see why she was trying to do that, but she definitely overused certain phrases. Like, for example, she wrote, her nipples popped. I don't know how many times she wrote that between book 1 and book 2, honestly. And it's like, I swear to God, if I have to read this sentence one more time, I'm gonna throw up. Like, I just could not with that. But I didn't love it. It didn't live up to the hype for me. So the day that I finished that book up is actually the same day that they brought the Golden State Killer into custody. And so because of that, there was all this press about it, and everybody started talking about Michelle McNamara's book, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. And I ended up finding that on Scribd and downloaded that and listened to the entire thing in one day. I really enjoyed it. I love true crime. I love stuff like that. And now that I've actually read that book, I am like in this true crime mode. Like, I want more. So if true crime is something that you're at all interested in, then I definitely recommend checking that one out. If you're familiar with the case already, I don't think that she necessarily brings anything new to the table, but I think that the fact that she was constantly talking about it and she was writing the book, you know, it never really fell out of view of the public. And because of that, I'm sure that that had a big part in why he was brought into custody. So I just think that that's totally awesome. And the very last bit of that book, she writes a letter to an old man. Reading that and knowing that they had brought this man into custody, like chills all over my body. It was so good. And the afterword from Patton Oswalt, her husband made me boohoo a little bit. But anyway, the book itself was really good. If you're a true crime fan, you definitely should read it. So then after that, I'm like, okay, I have this book, so I may as well read it. This is a sequel to You. It's called Hidden Bodies. And this one sucked. It sucked, y'all. I gave this one 2 stars. Obviously, this takes place after the events of You. And Joe is done with Beck. And he is going to LA because reasons. And honestly, nothing happens in this book until maybe the last 75 pages. And by the time stuff started happening, I just so did not care about what was happening that I'm just like skim reading at this point. Once again, these total like characters of the most awful people that you can imagine. And I'm sure that these people like legitimately do exist, but I'm like, you don't have a single real person in this book. And I think that the whole thing was they were supposed to be foils to Joe. That, you know, Joe is supposed to be like this real human being. But I didn't get that from him at all. Like, I didn't find him sympathetic. And in fact, I really kind of felt like he was a little bit pretentious anyway. I'm not going to sit here and talk shit about it for 5 minutes. I'm just going to say I didn't like it. I don't recommend it. Even if you really liked You, I wouldn't recommend this because, again, like nothing happens. She was really trying to go through and develop Joe, but I don't feel like she did a very good job with it. So that's just my personal opinion. So that brings me to the last little bit. And right now I am currently reading one book. I am still like all up in this true crime thing. And so I am reading The Stranger Beside Me by Ann Rule. I'm actually listening to this via audio. This is about Ted Bundy, who honestly, like, I know the littlest bit of information about this man, serial killer from the 70s, I believe, 70s or 80s. But the author Ann Rule actually did have a personal relationship with Bundy, and so I'm finding that really interesting. I'm about halfway through it so far, and I'm really liking it. There's been a couple parts where it has dragged a little bit, but for the most part, I'm enjoying it. So those are the things that I read in March and April. I'm no longer going to be putting out 3 videos a week, but I am definitely going to be uploading at least once a week. So you can expect that. To those of you that are watching this video and didn't actually unsubscribe because I was inactive for so long, thank you so much. I adore every single one of you that watch my videos or sent me a tweet or an Instagram message or whatever saying like, hey, where have you been? I appreciate every single one of you that, you know, checked up on me. I love this community so much, and that's why even though I wasn't actually filming videos, I was still very much a part of it, you know, on Twitter and Instagram, as I said before. So thank you all so much. If you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you click thumbs up and hit subscribe if you haven't already, because I will be putting out regular content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.